Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a truly heartbreaking story that completely gripped the UK and sparked some massive international debates, the case of Archie Battersbee. This is one of those rare stories where unimaginable personal tragedy crashes right into the most complex corners of modern medicine, incredibly strict legal frameworks, and profound ethical questions. Our goal here is to objectively walk through the facts, looking strictly at the clinical and legal records, to try and understand exactly how and why these impossibly difficult decisions are made. So here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with the tragic accident, move into the medical consensus, untangle the legal battles, look at how courts assess best interests, and finally wrap up with the aftermath and ethical legacy. Part 1. A tragic accident. To really grasp the sheer velocity of this case, you just have to look at the timeline. On April 7th, 2022, a 12-year-old boy named Archie Battersbee was found unconscious by his mother at their home in Essex, with a ligature around his neck. It was, of course, a horrific discovery. His mother immediately performed CPR, and when paramedics arrived, they actually managed to restore his heartbeat after about 40 minutes. But the lack of oxygen to his brain had already taken a massive toll. Just a day later, he was rushed to the Royal London Hospital. And remarkably, less than 3 weeks later, by April 26th, this situation had already escalated all the way to the High Court of Justice. When those paramedics first arrived on that tragic day, Archie was in full cardiac arrest. His initial Glasgow Coma Scale score was a 3. Now, to put that into perspective, that is literally the absolute lowest possible score a patient can register. It means no eye-opening, no verbal response, and no motor response whatsoever. This devastating baseline really set the stage for all the complex, agonizing medical evaluations that were about to happen in the ICU. Moving into Part 2, the medical consensus. Now, what's absolutely crucial to understand here is the UK's legal definition of brainstem death, because the early legal proceedings heavily centered on this. In the UK, it's defined as the irreversible loss of brainstem reflexes. But here's the catch. According to the official code of practice, this has to be diagnosed by very specific clinical neurological testing. It's a rigid, incredibly strict protocol designed to leave exactly zero room for doubt. So, as Archie lay in a coma, multiple consultant pediatric intensivists and neurologists were brought in to give second opinions. And the MRI findings, they were unanimous and, honestly, just devastating. Archie had suffered a global hypoxic brain injury, which means severe oxygen starvation. The scans also showed coning. This is where the brain swelling is so extreme it physically pushes the cerebellar tonsils down through the base of the skull, crushing the brainstem. And tragically, there was widespread tissue necrosis. Basically, the brain and spinal cord tissue were dying, and doctors couldn't detect any blood flow within his intracranial blood vessels. Because of these scan results, the doctors needed to perform that official brainstem test we defined a minute ago. But they hit a massive clinical roadblock. Step 1 of that strict protocol is a peripheral nerve stimulation test, basically checking to see if the muscles can even respond to a basic signal. But Archie's nerves were completely unresponsive. Because there was zero response, step 3 became inevitable. Doctors legally and clinically couldn't complete the standard brainstem test, meaning they couldn't officially declare him brainstem dead under the strict legal code, which profoundly complicated the entire path forward. Which brings us to Part 3, the legal battles. Because the medical test couldn't be finished, the action rapidly shifts to the Royal Courts of Justice. Over just a few short months, the UK legal system saw an unprecedented rapid-fire succession of hearings and appeals. The hospital trust went to the courts because they believed keeping Archie on mechanical ventilation was medically futile. But Archie's parents vehemently opposed this, sparking a massive legal battle that shot from the High Court to the Court of Appeal and eventually all the way up to the Supreme Court. So, here is the core of this heartbreaking conflict. On one side, you have the NHS Trust, backed by unanimous expert medical opinions, arguing that Archie had unsurvivable brain damage. They felt continued ventilation was just delaying the inevitable. On the other side, you have Archie's parents. Driven by profound parental love and deeply held Christian beliefs, they argued that as long as his heart was beating, he just needed more time to heal. His mother firmly believed it was up to God to decide what happened to Archie, not the hospital. His family fought. They absolutely fought tirelessly. They exhausted every legal avenue imaginable in a super compressed time frame. The initial High Court ruling came down in June, favoring the hospital. The family immediately appealed, setting off this complex back and forth. By July 25th, the Court of Appeal ultimately upheld the ruling to end treatment. The family even tried appealing to the United Nations and the European Court of Human Rights, but on August 3rd, the ECHR refused to intervene, saying they wouldn't mess with the UK court's rulings. Let's look at Part 4, Assessing Best Interests. In UK law, when a court looks at a child's best interests, the child's welfare is the absolute paramount consideration. The judge had to weigh everything: the cold medical reality, Archie's burgeoning religious views, and things he had said previously about wanting to stay alive for his mother. But ultimately, the judge concluded, and I quote, "The burdens of treatment, coupled with the lack of a prospect of recovery, outweighed his Christian beliefs and the benefits of continuing life on a ventilator." And this brilliantly illustrates how the court meticulously weighed those physical realities. They noted there was absolutely zero prospect of recovery. They looked at the immense physical toll of keeping his body on mechanical ventilation. There was this constant looming risk of a sudden, catastrophic cardiac arrest. And tragically, the severe brain damage meant Archie couldn't feel pain or experience any pleasure in life. So based on all of that, the court ruled that maintaining life support was just not in his best interest. Eventually, every single legal option was completely exhausted. There was a final, desperate bid by the family to move Archie to a hospice, but doctors warned he was far too fragile and it was just too risky. And so, the tragic inevitable happened. On August 6th, 2022, life support was withdrawn, and Archie passed away shortly afterwards, surrounded by his family. Finally, Part 5, Aftermath and Ethical Legacy. Early on, there were all these viral rumors floating around that Archie was doing some dangerous TikTok blackout challenge. Well, the official inquest completely debunked that. Concluded in February 2023, the senior coroner officially ruled his death a tragic accident, likely a prank or an experiment gone wrong. Both the police and the coroner explicitly stated there was no evidence of a TikTok challenge, though they did note he had a history of very low mood leading up to that day. 12. We really need to pause on that number for a second. Archie Battersbee was just 12 years old. Amidst all the complex legal jargon, the dense medical codes, and the huge court battles commanding international headlines, it's so incredibly important to remember the young boy at the absolute center of this storm. This case is going to be studied in medical and law schools for decades. It really forces us to confront the hard limits of medicine and the strict boundaries of the law when they collide with human grief. So I want to leave you with this lingering question. How do we ethically balance cold clinical reality, rigid legal frameworks, and profound, unwavering parental love in the face of such unimaginable tragedy? Thank you for joining me for this explainer. I hope it gave you a clear, objective look at a truly complex story.